Hey, this is Jonathan Gilliam, host of The Experts, creator of The Experts, the guy who brings the truth to you. I got to tell you, I can't thank you enough for all that you have done in helping me get the word out for this show. But I've got to challenge you. Remember, word of mouth is what gets this show out there and what gets the truth to the people. And if we're going to make this country great, it's you, the first branch of government, the people. You not only have to have the truth, but you have to be willing to act on it. And so I'm challenging all of you. Go tell 5 people. Hell, tell 10 people about this show. But tell people about this show. Help me get it out there. Help me get it promoted. Let's get the truth, which you know I bring. Let's get the truth out there. And let's start the show. Ladies and gentlemen, the failed mayor of New York City, Bill de Blasio.
The military, as I've said, I have no doubt in my mind, stands ready to do all necessary to help their fellow Americans. I just wish they would get the order, and they have not gotten that order. President Trump, I will only say to the president, I don't understand. And President Trump is not doing that now for reasons that are absolutely inexplicable to the vast majority of us. But there's still time. Not much, but there's still time.
Jonathan Gilliam back in on the Experts Podcast. And as always, during this whole event that we got going on in this country, we have a lot to talk about. And tonight is going to be, it's not going to be, there's going to be opinion in this. I'm going to give you my opinion about Knucklehead de Blasio, but I'm going to bring on a couple of people tonight that, because I really do want you all to hear from people besides myself about the reality of, de Blasio went on and on and on. And I hope people don't think when I play these sound bites from these leftists like de Blasio that I'm supporting him against the president. That is not the case. I want people to realize how ridiculous this guy is and the things that he was saying. I'm going to play a little bit more of a soundbite here. It's so ridiculous because he does not have a grasp on what the military can and cannot do. And he does not have a grasp. He's been watching too many movies. He's definitely smoked too much pot, and he does not have a grasp on reality. He doesn't even know how to lead. He doesn't know why we're in this predicament that we're in to begin with, which I've been talking about all week. So I wanted to reach out to my good buddy, Dave Robinson. Unfortunately, I don't have a hillbilly song, so I'm just going to play this one for him. Hold on. There you go. So I like to do a little introduction for certain people on here. I think Dave Robinson deserves an introduction from the hills of West Virginia. Former Marine and overall badass in the woods. He likes to tame bears and then ride them. Dave Robinson. That is Dave Robinson music right there, I would say. All this music, so the music you hear at the beginning of the show, that's from Melissa Bernos, also known as Bernos. And then this music that you hear, the stuff that I play throughout the show, that comes from my good buddy Brian Gosher, who is a composer of all this type of music. So, Dave, welcome to the show.
Thank you. How you doing?
I'm good. This is your first appearance on the podcast since we went from videocast, took a year off, and here we are on podcast. And it's you were a mainstay of the other show whenever I needed news from West Virginia or just an opinion that was really outside the mainstream media. I would reach out for you. So, it's good to have you on here again. And if you can help me explain to people what the military is capable of doing in a situation like this, where they're not declaring martial law. I don't know what de Blasio wants out of all this.
Yeah, like I say, it seems the last thing we want done. To me, it just sounds like he's just trying to pass the buck. He's wanting everything taken out of his hands. This is all over his head, and he wants it taken out of his hands. And then whatever goes bad, he could blame Trump for bringing in the military, even though he's begging for it. You bring in the military, I believe that you're just going to freak people out even more.
Yeah.
And when you start getting military guys out there doing military things, to get people off the street, and they're not trained how police officers are trained to be kind and gentle. They're mission oriented. Hey, you get people off the street. Okay, well, this is how we're going to do it. And he's going to cause a lot more harm than he's going to help. I
mean, also the fact is, we don't need the military out here. There's no riots in the street. Nobody's, people are bored.
He's want to turn us into China.
Yeah, it doesn't make any sense. I mean, that's why I said those are the words of a socialist. I mean, this is the way that they think, and you back me up on this because I put out a tweet today, and I'll read it a little bit later. But the tweet basically said that for literally years and years and years, most cities in this country overall has grown to be more and more reactive. There's no proactive stance in anything except for civilians like preppers and things like that. They're proactive, but city agencies are not proactive. And when you realize how bad and that is, how dangerous it is, and how they could have thought this whole thing could have been thought out. They could have told people, hey, this could come around eventually. It probably will. This is how we should react. They've never done. They're making this up as it goes along. And explain to everybody in the military versus now as a civilian. You've been a civilian for a long time, but you were a Marine before, and you took some of that mindset over to the civilian world where you are prepared, and give people an understanding of why that's important.
I mean, just that nobody could have seen this coming on, this whole virus, how it's coming around. But that's the thing that you generally have to be prepared for. And it's simple things. You can't prepare for, virus that they have no cure for or anything, but the fact that you can prepare yourself that you might be stuck in your house.
Yeah, nobody even knows that.
Have some sort of rations in there. Your essential things that you need to live, food and water, and apparently everybody's top priority is toilet paper.
Is that a case in West Virginia? Is that a big deal in West Virginia?
It is ridiculous. You can't keep it on here, and they're having my wife works in retail. So when people going in there, they're having to ration it out there. Listen, please just take 3 rolls or your 3 packs. That's the most you can get, 3 packs.
I don't understand that. I don't understand that.
Me neither. But if anything else, get a generator if you're afraid that the power is going to go out along the way, for storms, things like this. Give yourself something to do in the doggone house and make sure you have food and something to keep you entertained. That's all you can do.
And you have a shower. If you ran out of toilet paper and there was no toilet paper, I don't know a house that doesn't have a shower or a bathtub within 5 feet of the toilet.
That's it. It's any port in a storm, but people just don't want to give up whatever luxury they feel like they have. They don't want. I don't know. There's sacrifices that I guess the people aren't willing to make that need to be made in times like this.
In this whole press conference that de Blasio had in New York City, he never once mentioned stuff like, make sure you're buying non-perishable items, buy rice, buy canned beans, buy those things that you can eat over a period of time in case it gets bad. You don't hear anything like that from him. He literally believes.
That's why he's wanting military. I think, he wants somebody to take this responsibility off his hands, and then maybe they'll bring in crates of MREs. But like you say, there's nothing to canning your own food. You don't have to be some country bumpkin on the farm to can food. You can go get it on sale at stores, meat and everything else, and can it. I've got piles of deer canned up here. I've got 2 deer in the freezer right now. We're not worried about going hungry through any of this.
That's exactly the thing. And also the other thing I think people need to start thinking about is water. I think look, like I said in the tweet today, and I'm going to read that again here in a little bit, but he's trying to call out the military as though there's chaos in the street. There's no chaos in the street. People aren't dying from hunger. None of that stuff is happening. So there's no need for the military. However, with leaders like this, in 3-4 weeks, there could be chaos in the streets, because I could see, with the amount of terrible leadership and non-preparation that we have in this country, I could see people that work in the water plant getting sick, or people that work in the electrical grid getting sick, or heaven forbid, some crazies go out there and blow up the electrical grid right now. It's going to get rid of everything.
I mean, to me, it shows him having a lack of faith in his own leadership skills and his own law enforcement.
He has
skills.
no
and he's
leadership.
neutered law enforcement up there so much that, he doesn't realize what they're for anymore, other than personal protection, I guess.
So let's talk a little bit about preparedness. I keep talking about the fact that the word has pre in it, and that signifies look into this before the situation occurs. And I know you live your life like that. Where did you learn that? Is it the way you were raised, being in a rural area versus being in the city, or was something the Marine Corps taught you? What is it?
I think it's probably a combination of Marine Corps discipline sort of thing, and then environment where, we have tough winters here, and, being in a rural environment, there's a lot of trees and ice and snow gets on those trees, and that brings down power lines, and we wind up without power. Just areas like the floods that we've had, and, just anything that knocks power out for a while, that I need a generator. It's an obvious. I need a generator, something to, keep a light on, keep what's in the freezer frozen so it doesn't go bad, and that food I have, in case we run out of gas on that, I've got plenty enough canned things around there, things that you're preparing all the time. Folks around here, everybody's got gardens, so you either got some kind of vegetables, or I've got, I can up deer meat too, much of that stuff, maybe as many deer as I can kill during the season that I can get, me and my family get. And we know we're going to be eating, we want to keep warm.
Yeah.
So we have plenty of things to keep warm. All our vehicles have it. It's just, knowing your environment, knowing the things that have gone wrong in the past, the things could potentially go wrong now. You don't have to be one of these tinfoil hat guys with, tons and tons of ammo piled up, but just keeping necessities in your car. You got to eat. Your family's got to eat. Keep that, stash put away, rotate it out. Some things can just sit there forever. You can throw back a doggone couple cases or a couple rolls of toilet paper or something, it's not going to go bad. You can put it back. Well, I'm not touching this. I don't need that right now. Other things you just kind of rotate out, and you expect, repeats of things that have happened in the past, and if you're ready for that, you're ready for a lot of the unexpected too.
Now, I think people, one thing that they're not realizing as well, and this idiot de Blasio definitely doesn't realize it, is that when you're in a crisis situation, other crises can occur, right? It's not going to be limited to just this one crisis. And you actually dealt with something similar to this, and I want to get your take on how it changed you. When West Virginia had all those floods a couple of years ago, it was, unbelievable. I've been there where you live, and you show me where the floodwaters were at. It was literally 50 feet deep in some places. Ridiculous.
Yeah.
And so you were already dealing with that, this flood. Because you guys live on top of a mountain. Most people don't realize it can flood on top of a mountain, but it did. And but you had another incident within that. You were already dealing with the floods, and then you had to go get your daughter. And tell everybody, if you feel like it, tell everybody about that situation and how it was a situation within a situation. And how has that changed you when you see these things?
Well, whenever I had to go get her, she was cut off over at my parents' house for a while. And they're high up on a mountain, to where, well, I'd say this is more of just a little hill, couldn't really call it a mountain, but that they were safe out of the water, but they were surrounded. They couldn't get what they needed. Fortunately, like I said, things happen like that around here. Dad had a generator. They had plenty of food in the freezer. They had plenty of food canned up and other things they needed. But my daughter was over there.
Mm-hmm.
I waited for all the water, in town to go down to where, which took darn near a week for me to get over there. So when I finally got over there, we had, people who were volunteering because nobody was expecting this to happen. So there was volunteers that were down there with boats and everything else. And right there, that water was like hip deep, but everybody's trying to stay out of it. But, he floated me over there, and I went over and took resupplies of gas and water up to my folks. I come back down there, everybody done bailed out, that were supposed to help because there's, a lack of preparing or thought on the people who were just volunteering to help because they wasn't expecting anything like this, and there was no plan for it. So me and my daughter were kind of caught out in the middle of that, and the people who were there to help kind of bailed out on us.
So when you went to go get her, though, this is where it really started to get dangerous.
Yeah, it all just kind of bringing her back over there because we couldn't get back the other way. So coming across there, I'm kind of holding her up in the air. That water, it was cold. It was doggone June, but that water, flood water is still pretty doggone cold. And it just take your breath away going up there and just, that undercurrent that looks like the water up top is fine, but just a few feet below, it's rushing. They're about to take my feet out from under me.
Right.
But it taught me that, like, well, you know what? I'd like not do a lot of fishing or anything else, but it's going to pay to have a little John boat around here in case anything like that comes up again.
Right. That's so funny because that when you talk to people who, like you're prepared, you're pretty prepared for everything that can occur, but you weren't necessarily prepared for that. But it's unbelievable how many people after they go through that don't prepare for the next time because there very well could be another flood.
Oh, exactly. And they're coming through here with all the pipelines and everything else. What kind of caused that was a lot of the timbering that they done around here and water just rushing right off the hills. Well, now they're going through with this pipeline, so they're not replanting any trees coming up there. So that water's going to rush down again sooner or later.
So do you, when you look at this situation that's going on, which, this is a bizarre situation that we've never been faced with in our lifetime. What do you see that could be done that's not being done? Like now they're talking about giving $1,200 to everybody. I don't really think that that's going to do much myself.
No, it's I can understand it in senses for like, well, people have bills and things like that they're going to need to pay. I think they would be better off contacting, working with these power companies and things like that to, forgive that doggone that month's bill.
That's where I think things could really work if they did that.
Yeah, I worry about sending this out is that, all of us, people would get relying on that, and every catastrophe rolls around, or something not even a catastrophe, that they're going to, that's the first answer. Well, how much money are you going to send us for this one?
Yeah.
Well, we had a snowstorm. How much money for this? So the flu's going around. How much money for this?
And how many people are actually going to spend that wisely? That's the other thing. You give, a lot of people, you give them $1,200, they're either going to go score some drugs, buy something to drink.
One of the first jokes I made when, what was it, Romney, and he was one of the first ones, I guess, putting it up there. Well, I'd like to send every American $1,000. So I was like, wow, he's kind of sick of, anti-gun guys offering to buy me an AR-15. Is that what you're saying?
Now that's funny. Thanks, Romney.
Yeah. But then you've seen how quick that turned to just everybody just trying to one up each other.
Yeah. Should be 2,000.
And yeah, 2,000. Well, Bernie, 3. I'll give that to you every day.
Yeah. Yeah. Right.
So, what do you think it is that West Virginia hasn't had any cases? What's Dave Robinson's opinion on that? Well, now you do.
Yeah. Well,
now you do.
We've got them now, and I think a lot of them was lack of testing.
Yeah. So they were there.
A lot of it. Yeah, but there's also a lot of it is, at least like in places like my area, which that's a lot of West Virginia, is people are just kind of far apart anyway. There's not a lot of, how like when I come up for visit New York, everybody is just,
on top of each other.
Elbow to elbow up there. Yeah, and it's just you can't avoid them. And there's few places like that here. Even when you go into stores and stuff, until now, it's not like that.
Yeah.
Or at least not places I go. The whole deal hasn't changed much of my lifestyle there. I kind of just hide out in the woods or hide out at home anyway.
You've been social distancing for over 20 years.
Yeah. Me and society are both fine with that.
So, so this really hasn't changed your way of life?
No. Other than worrying a little bit more, about my daughter and things, which they got off school out and she's here.
Yeah.
And it's kind of tough. Yeah, she wants to go play with friends or whatever, and kind of, got a kibosh on that. Or, I have custody of her, but on weekends she'll go spend the weekends with her mother, which is just right across the border of Virginia. And then it's just extra worry about, okay, are you doing the right things? Which
Right.
I believe she's, being pretty good to go on that. But it's still just an extra worry on me. But other than that, everything's the same.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, listen.
Which, if you're ready for things, then that's the whole point. It shouldn't change much other than just have, some folks that don't want to stay home having to stay home. But if you're ready for it, then you're ready for it.
It's just the unknown. You go somewhere, you stop in to get some gum. You don't know who touched that counter. You as soon as you leave your home, you're going into a fluid situation. And you know as well as I do, even when you think tactically or you've been trained tactically, once you enter into the unknown, it's a fluid situation. And I swear, I don't know what it is. I need to ask a psychologist about this, because like now I'm not working out in the gym. Now I got my stuff downstairs and I've been working out there. But as soon as I step into somewhere, and I really have not been going anywhere, but as soon as I step into the public, I want to scratch my face.
Yeah.
My nose itches like it's never itched before. And my eyes are like, I need to rub my eyes. I mean, it's like psychologically it becomes overwhelming.
Well, I got my beard halfway down to my chest there, so I just pull it up over my head to protect me. Don't worry.
That's your mask.
But hopefully, something like this will kind of open people's eyes up to what they're going to need to do, when they're stuck in the house and all the things that they wish they're having. Well, you know what? Get out there and have it on hand for the next time. The hard lessons are the best lessons.
Yep.
They're
Absolutely.
the ones that stick.
Hey, how do you purify water if you had to? What way do you do it?
I mean, very much better than boiling it.
Yeah. Okay.
As long as, if you've got it out of a well or what you're coming out of the tap is nasty, or questionable rather, just boiling it. Could run it through a still if you have such things.
No.
But
yeah, I was wondering.
Another thing too, and that's just more preparing. If that's something you're worried about, they water purification tablets and filters and things like that. Stock up on that stuff because you never know.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. No, I mean, I was laughing a little while ago because I was thinking, all the training I've been through, all the preparedness training, all these things. And I find myself, because I live in New York, there's only a limited amount of things that you can have here. I mean,
right.
Living in New York, it kind of, like I said, here's this mayor and they tell everybody constantly, the government will take care of you. It's better for you to be helpless and depend on us. But yet when it comes to a crisis, you can't depend on them.
Exactly. And it's, nanny states, socialist states, this is just showing how that fails.
Yeah.
They don't want to help with your lives. It's just a matter of controlling your life, or more important than anything, controlling your money.
Yeah.
And property. But now when it's like coming around, when it's supposed to be their time to shine, he's trying to hand it off. Oh, well, President Trump, why aren't you doing anything? Why haven't you sent the military? Well, why would you want the military there? You were elected to do a job. Do that job.
Yeah. I mean, there's cops. You could take volunteers, any veterans in the city, or former cops that could be, sworn in as police officers to help out, volunteers that used to be in the medical field or have some training or even don't, just are healthy. They can come to the hospital and help out. I mean, I don't
see in situations, calling up reservists and National Guardsmen and stuff, because you have these people who are coming in to help, who have a structure of, okay, you're in charge, and this guy's going to tell that guy what to do, and he's going to do it right. I understand to a certain degree that sort of assistance, but for just calling all out military to come in and be patrolling the streets, there's no sense in that.
Yeah, because there's cops already there, and they're not overburdened.
Exactly. That's what their job is. And if he hadn't have been, castrating them the entire time he's been in office, they would get out there and do their job and do it well.
The other thing
and
is
make him look good, and he just sit back and take
the glory.
The credit.
Yeah, that's not the way the socialists and incompetent leaders work. One thing also that stands out with this guy is when he speaks into a microphone, which is typical of people who are on drugs. He must have chronic dry mouth because it is it's like listening to a chalkboard with the fingernails because the entire time he's smacking because his mouth is dry and because he smokes so much dope.
Probably. He's just wondering where's the power supply. They're closing up all these borders. Where's my supply going to come
from? Exactly. It's interesting because I figured West Virginia, as soon as tests became available, that they would start showing that there's more people there. But I was really wondering if moonshine had something to do with it. I was hoping.
I hope so. But then again, it's been the little nasty secret there. The last bit I had was the last bit I'd had with you. So
yeah. I do wonder. Now they're saying this one drug that's a malaria drug.
Drug, yeah.
But I don't know if it's the one that we took in the military that was causing all those issues.
Right.
I don't know if it's the same one. I'll have to find out. But I know now they're saying that the malaria drug that the military used to give us causes brain injury or something like that. I can't remember what it was.
It causes the same things like PTSD with
right.
Folks were having PTSD. Turns out that they were linking it to, the same symptoms as PTSD, but they didn't have any traumatic events, but they link it to that drug. Yeah.
Yeah. All right, brother. I think we'll call it there, and then I thank you. Can't thank you enough for coming back on the show, and under other circumstances, we'll have you back on, and we'll have some fun.
Well, just holler anytime you need the class to join up.
You got it, buddy. And Dave Robinson, that was Dave Robinson, West Virginia, Dave Robinson. Thank you very much, Dave, for being on.
God bless you. You have a good one.
You got it, buddy. And that was Dave Robinson, of course. And I'll tell you what, let's take a quick break. We'll come back, and then I'm going to bring Michael Jack on, who's a former senior FBI special agent, and we're going to talk a little bit more about de Blasio and the ridiculousness of the things that he said. And so let's do that. We'll take a break, and we'll be right back. Hey, this is Jonathan Gilliam, and of course you're listening to the experts, so you know it's Jonathan Gilliam. So I have a book called Sheep No More, The Art of Awareness and Attack Survival. I always try to talk about it and do at least one little commercial here. This is going to be a short one because I think you see exactly in what's going on in the world, even though this is a virus, you can still be prepared. Remember, I always talk about this, being prepared. It means you're prepared before these things happen. Right? That's how you have a plan. And it's very easy to keep yourself out of a violent situation. It's very easy to avoid most dangerous things. And in the cases of like this virus from spreading, if you typically wash your hands and have good hygiene, you're much less possible of getting this virus. So Sheep No More, The Art of Awareness and Attack Survival was written for you. I show you how attackers look at you and how you can take your life and divide it into sectors and then target each sector. So instead of saying, I'm going to secure my life, you secure each sector. Your home in the mornings, different than your commute to work. That's different than when you're at work, different than when you're at lunch, different when you're at a special event, and so on and so forth. Sheep No More, The Art of Awareness teaches you how attackers look at those sectors, because different sectors have different attackers that prey on different vulnerabilities, that exploit those vulnerabilities to get at different critical assets at different critical times to get to those criticalities. The avenues of approach are different because it's in different places. Once you learn how to look at that, then the second half of the book shows you how to defend and set up defenses against that, to have plans of action. and how to act instead of just react. It's got 2 workbooks that go with it. The threat assessment workbook covers the first half of the first book, Sheep No More, and the second workbook, the defense assessment workbook, goes with those defenses that I just discussed. Sheep No More, The Art of Awareness and Attack Survival, and it's 2 workbooks. Trust me, if you get it, it will change your life. And that's the truth. Sheep No More, The Art of Awareness and Attack Survival, everywhere books are sold. Let's get back to the show. All right, folks, we're back now. And I got my good buddy who I've not had on, just like Dave Robinson just made his appearance on the show, the podcast, for the first time. And I've had Scott Eulinger on here. I just felt it was time to have Micheal Jack on here, who is a former FBI special agent and a senior FBI special agent. He was all the way up to GS 4000, I believe, is what he was at. I think he was making Bloomberg money when he was in the bureau. And
Hey, all right.
so hey, listen, it's good. I've used all my songs, or else I'd give you a song for an intro. Let's see. I got these because I got all these different. Let's see here. Hold on. What do we got here? There you go.
What in the world is that?
Those are birds. No. Here, I'll just give you applause. Let's see here. Nope, that's a laugh track. Okay, here we go. And former special agent and Superman, he can fly and bend steel and outrun trains. Micheal Jack. There we go.
Thank you.
All right, there you go. All right, brother. So I'm going to play a soundbite. I was telling you about this, and I played a little snippet of it at the beginning. But I want you to hear some of the stuff that Bloomberg was saying, and I want to get your take on this because you are involved with the Republican Party in Reno, correct?
Yeah, in Nevada. Yeah,
in Nevada,
mm-hmm.
And so you see and understand the ridiculousness of this from a leadership, a mayoral standpoint, and a leadership standpoint. But let's listen to Bloomberg for a second. I think you'll be able to hear this. And I'm going to be quiet. So say ahead. Go ahead.
Is this Bloomberg or de Blasio?
I'm sorry, de Blasio. I said Bloomberg, de Blasio. Yeah, okay. From de Blasio. So here he goes.
Help all of us. And that's eventually going to be this whole country. It's New York City today. It's places like Seattle, but we certainly saw what happened in Westchester County. We see other places developing around the country, but make no mistake, it'll eventually be everywhere. So our federal government needs to right now go where the need is greatest. And there is no place where the need is greatest than New York State and New York City. Of course, I am heartened that the Congress passed an initial relief bill. But initial is the key word. It is a small beginning. It's far from what we need. I never look a gift horse in the mouth, but I can say with assurance that the first step taken by the Congress is just a small first step, and we need a huge stimulus and relief bill immediately that puts money back in the pockets of people who have lost so much.
Okay, I want to ask you about that first and foremost. There's this talk about giving everybody $1,200 unless you make over a certain amount, then you're going to get less. See, I have a problem with that because I would rather see them give out groceries or get people free rent for, talk to people and say, hey, we're not going to charge, you can't charge rent for a month, something like that before we go and give people $1,000 in cash. I just don't think they're not responsible enough to stay at home. You think they're going to spend $1,000 responsibly?
Probably not. Most of them probably won't. Some will. I mean, I'm a small businessman. I have about a dozen employees, and today we learned that we deal heavily with the courts, and basically the courts have made some rulings that is going to shut down our business for the next month or so.
Right.
And I know my employees would they would be using it to pay their rent and to buy food and so on. But there are a lot of others that they may not even be working anyway now, even before this, that are going to go out probably spend that money on alcohol or drugs or whatever else. It's not going to. It'll be in the black market. It's not going to be in an area where it's actually going to do much good in stimulating our economy.
And that's what I feel. You know, my living depends on right now book sales and speaking engagements. I mean, that's the main way I make my money, and I do, you know, some security and stuff as well, but mainly it's from book sales and speaking engagements. And you're not speaking anywhere right now. It's not going to happen because there's no conventions. Yeah. So but I don't want to take $1,200 in cash when I'm sheltering in place and spending very little money right now, you know, basically buying groceries and watching TV and working out outside. That's really what I'm doing. And I think if they, you know, put a clamp and said nationally, you're not going to be able to charge rent for a month, in mortgages. So the people who are, you know, maybe are the ones who are the landlords, they have their own mortgage, and we could stop them, you know, from having to pay their mortgage as well. I mean, those are things that could be stopped, and in a lot of cases, they are.
Yeah, what just happened in Nevada was a couple of days ago in Reno, the mayor, I call her the Queen Mayor of Reno, declared an emergency and told all non-essential businesses to shut down. Basically, the essential businesses were stores, you know, food stores, pharmacies, and gas stations. Everybody else was told, yeah, hey, you need to shut down. Everybody needs to stay home. Well, not everybody did that. We stayed open, but we served short, so we had to. Then yesterday, the governor basically shut down the state. And if you want to see something eerie, take a look at the pictures of Las Vegas. Dark.
Yeah.
On that day, about 150,000 employees statewide were all of a sudden out of a job. Now, you know, half of them are union employees down in Las Vegas, and the union is going to take care of them, but the other half aren't. But they, at the same time, they've opened up, you know, unemployment benefits, and you know, people can apply for the unemployment. They can get help that way. I'm not sure. I'm not really big on, you know, throwing cash out there as a stimulus. I think using the programs that are already in place would do as good, if not a better job.
Yeah, the only problem with that is people have to get up off their rear and or they have to get on the computer and make some effort. It's much easier for them to just get a check and cash it. And this is the problem I'm having here, Michael, is that, and I've been talking about this all week, is that not only is the government, and I'm not talking about the past 3 years of Trump's presidency. I mean, the president has less to do with the reaction of what's happening than any other politician. What it is people around this country, especially in the big cities, have been told, you don't have to think for yourself, you don't have to protect yourself, and you don't have to worry for crisis situations because we'll take care of you. But it's all smoke and mirrors. Every bit of it is smoke and mirrors until something goes bad. It's a Ponzi scheme is what it is, of safety.
Yeah, well, you're right about the Ponzi scheme part of it, because the $1 trillion stimulus package, there's no $1 trillion there.
Right.
You know, you only get the money when you get taxes coming in, primarily income taxes, and that's going to slow down. I mean, the tax day got moved back. You're basically going to be printing money to make this happen. I think more the reason that they're doing this is that they want to try and somehow restore some confidence in government and in our society again after getting slammed the way we have over the last couple of weeks. I'm not sure that is actually going to help. I think using all the other resources and getting them out there and showing that will help. But people have to realize, like de Blasio, he's a big government guy. And so he's trying to push everything back to the federal government. The federal government was never designed to do that. That's a state and local matter, not a federal government matter.
Well, not according to him.
Yeah, of course. Well, that's what, basically communists or socialists or, collectivists, whatever you want to call him. That's what he believes in, and that's what they think. It's got to be big government with a few people sitting at the top that are pulling all the strings.
Right.
And that's not the way we're supposed to operate. So it's contrary to that as well, and it bothers me that way too.
Let's listen to a little bit more of the soundbite. Hold on.
Helps local governments keep going and doing the work we do. And really responds to the reality on the ground, particularly in providing health care for so many people so quickly. Right now, the United States government is not even close to where it needs to be. But I do thank the House and the Senate for the action they took. I am very thankful to the United States military for sending the ship that we've all been waiting for, the USNS Comfort, which is a 1,000-bed floating hospital and will be crucial to our efforts in this city and state to protect people. The military, as I've said, I have no doubt in my mind, stands ready to do all necessary to help their fellow Americans. I just wish they would get the order, and they have not gotten that order.
Now, this makes no sense. I was talking to Dave Robinson earlier. I don't know what this guy thinks that the military is going to do when they show up. There's no chaos in the street. There's no killing going on. What does he think that the military is going to do?
The only thing that I can think of that the active duty military, even the reserves, other than the National Guard, could actually do is what they're already doing, providing additional medical support. But there's no riots in the street. There's no violence going on. People are staying home waiting this thing out like they're told, or a lot of them are.
Yeah. Most
of them are. And, there's no reason for us to have, armed troops on the street or doing anything other than, first aid or, running triage operations or something like that, or that shift. That's a great example. If New York really needs it, I don't know how bad New York City is being hit. Do they really need that boat?
Well, they're actually, it's the amount of cases that are starting to build. They're building very quick. And a lot of these hospitals anticipate being overran by these patients. I mean, there's been some patients here that have discussed, I saw it on CNN, for instance, and they were discussing how they don't even know how they got it. They didn't even tell. One guy was, I saw him on CNN. He was like, he was isolated for 10 days. And then all of a sudden he gets this flu-like thing, and it's the hard kind, and it just went straight into his lungs. And now they're saying, which this guy is another thing about de Blasio, he goes on here saying that young people don't have anything to worry about. Well, if he had watched the news today before this press conference, I woke up knowing that there was more of a threat to young people. But he's so stupid, he doesn't even, he's high half the time. This guy's a big dope head. And I keep saying that. I know people don't really think it's true, but it's true.
Well, I wouldn't be surprised. Not at all.
Oh, you should hear the stories from his protective detail. It's ridiculous. Let me play another bit of this soundbite. Hold on.
All right.
President Trump, I will only say to the president, I don't understand. And I think there are millions and tens of millions of Americans who don't understand what you are doing right now. You are not using the tools of your office. This is one of the greatest emergencies our nation has faced in generations. Every tool must be brought to bear. For some reason, you continue to hesitate. I said it not to be flip, but to note the historical parallel. President Trump, right now, you are the Herbert Hoover of your generation. You are watching and waiting and missing every chance to be bold and to act to protect our nation.
Now, what does he mean by that? Do you know?
I think some of the actions that the president has taken are some of the boldest in the history of this country. But what he's doing, what it looks like to me, or sounds like to me he's still trying to push that responsibility off on the federal government.
Yeah.
The president, if I remember correctly, correct me if I'm wrong, the president nationalized the Guard, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so the states can call out the Guard and use them in any way, any capacity that, peacetime that they can. And the federal government's going to pay for it. It doesn't come out of the state budget.
Mm-hmm.
That's a big deal right there.
Yeah.
But this guy is He's still trying to push all the responsibility off of his desk and right past the governor to the president. And that's not the way our country was designed to work. Not at all.
Yeah. Well, he wants to do that also because he doesn't know what he's doing. The people that teach learned helplessness, what I found is, and I saw this in the military, people who are the worst leaders, they are more dependent on the leadership above them. So this guy doesn't really know what he's doing. So he's trying to throw it all over to the president. But what did he mean by comparing him to, who was it that he compared him to?
Hoover.
Yeah. What does he mean by that?
Hoover was the president when the market crashed. He'd just been reelected or been elected in 1928. The market crashed in 29. And so he was the first one to try and deal with it. And he didn't get reelected. The FDR beat him because the market crashed on his watch. And so Hoover had some bold ideas. There were some things he was trying to do, but he just, he couldn't get the backing of Congress. He couldn't get the backing he needed to make it happen. And it just all happened so fast that, by the time that term was over with or the next election came along, he didn't have a chance.
Let's listen to what he says right here.
Herbert Hoover's successor, Franklin Delano Roosevelt, determined that our nation needed urgent and immediate action and created the New Deal and transformed the effort to help our people and saved our country, literally.
Now, from my understanding of the New Deal, it was a complete socialist program and a far left-leaning.
And the architects of the New Deal were former members of the American Socialist Party that migrated into the Democrat Party after the election in 1928. They actually had a candidate run in that election, a socialist candidate run, and he did very poorly. And members of the hierarchy of the Socialist Party, American Socialist Party, figured out that what they needed to do was to migrate into one of the two larger parties, the big parties. And they picked the Democratic Party because it was the closest to what they believed in. And then these guys eventually ended up being part of Hoover's brain trust, and they were the architects of most of the New Deal. And early on, a big chunk of the New Deal was found unconstitutional by the Supreme Court. And it wasn't until later on in Roosevelt's terms, or his time in office, that he was able to basically pack the court with his people, and he could push some of his stuff through. But the New Deal extended the problem. It exasperated the problem. The Great Depression lasted 7 years longer than it should have, and only came out because of World War II, and that was because of those policies.
Now, what is it about war that brings us out of a recession or a depression?
Well, part of it is that everybody gets behind, the war effort. Mm-hmm. Everybody makes a sacrifice, and they really ramp up production. I mean, look what they did. The same production act that the president is enacting now was enacted in World War II. And, everybody went from building DeSotos to building Jeeps and tanks and airplanes, and the government was paying for it all, and we're not only for our military but for the Brits and for the Russians, and we basically armed most of the free or semi-free world at that time. So yeah, that's a big boost to the economy.
But they had work. They didn't just give out money. The people were working for the money.
Yeah, no, these people were working really hard. We had folks that were working a couple of jobs, and then World War II was so neat because for women especially, they got to do so many new things that had been primarily for men, like flying airplanes, flying bombers back and forth across the ocean from the United States to Great Britain and delivering, that kind of stuff. They didn't get to do that before the war. So it just kind of brings out the best in our society and the best in our people, who we are. it really brings out the best of our DNA, our American DNA.
Hey, I tell you what, Michael, just hold that thought for a second. Michael Jack joining us, former FBI senior special agent. Hold that thought. Let's take a break, and we're going to come back. I'm going to play another soundbite, and you can tell us what you think about that. So stand by. Hey, this is Jonathan Gilliam. If you've been listening to this podcast, you've heard me talk about my new book that's coming out April 7th, The Adventures of Team Little Bigs, a parent's book for children. I can't think of a more important time than right now in securing your children in every way of life. Whether it's washing their hands or looking out for bad guys, understanding that you shouldn't play behind the tire of a car. These are lessons that are going to be in this book so that you can teach your child safety and security, awareness and communication at the youngest age. The book is all pictures, and each picture has between 3 and 5 lessons in there that are added into the picture. And what the parent does then is we're developing a website right now to be ready when the book comes out, but it's going to have lesson plans on there for the parent. So the parent takes the lesson plans, they give the book to the child. As the child goes through the pictures, the parent goes through the lesson plan and teaches the child to be aware, safe, secure, and how to communicate. The Adventures of Team Little Bigs, a parent's book for children. You have to go get it. Everywhere books are sold, you can get it right now, pre-order, but it comes out April 7th. That is the way you secure your homeland. Let's get back to the show. All right, we're going to play another soundbite from de Blasio, and then we'll get Michael Jack's take on this, former senior FBI special agent. All right, let's go back to the tape.
President Trump is not doing that now for reasons that are absolutely inexplicable to the vast majority of us. But there's still time. Not much, but there's still time. The president yesterday invoked the Defense Production Act. I have no idea why the president waited until March 18th to invoke the Defense Production Act, which has been used repeatedly in recent decades.
Now, he's concerned with this for what reason, you think?
The Defense Production Act?
Yeah.
Well, what it allows him to do is redirect, and cut a lot of red tape, like for masks. For instance, 3M is a big manufacturer of the mask, but because of the red tape, they couldn't provide it directly to the public. There was some other process they had to go through, some middleman or whatever. And making respirators. We're going to have, if it gets really bad, we're going to have problems with respirators because this disease attacks the lungs. And we're going to have a shortage of respirators. So now that he has that power, he hasn't even had to go out and say, I want you to do this. He's got automobile manufacturers saying, hey, we got extra space over here, and we've got people and we've got machines. We could build these respirators for you. Mm-hmm. They're volunteering to do that. They've got engineers to do that. There are engineers now who are working on, those 3D printers?
Yep.
That can actually to figure out ways to use those to create respirators. So it gives him these tools where he can go out and say, all right, cut this red tape, let's get this done. And he's really good at doing that. But it also is kind of like a stick. The people out there who own these big businesses, car manufacturers and big manufacturing companies, the pharmaceutical companies, whatever, they know he has that power now, and he can come down on them and make them do it, and they're stepping up on their own. I think it's great.
Do you think, I keep wanting to ask questions, but let me play a little bit more of this.
Seems to me, given what we knew about this crisis, given that the city of New York held its first press conference to announce our steps on coronavirus on January 24th. I think the president could have invoked the Defense Production Act in February or even January, but he's finally done it. And we know the history that authorization allows for massive actions by the federal government to ensure that companies are producing needed goods and that they get to where they are needed most. However, the president has not ordered any of those subsequent actions, and this must change immediately.
So hearing that, I guess that kind of speaks to what you were saying, but it doesn't all come back to the fact that he's just wanting the federal government to do all the work. He wants the federal government to come in like a good socialist would and save the day.
Yeah, that's exactly what, his tone is exactly. And the other thing that crossed my mind while I was listening to that, and he was, throwing those dates out there. Do you remember what was going on during that time period in the federal government?
What is it?
Impeachment.
Yeah, exactly.
Impeachment.
Exactly.
Impeachment. The whole world was, and the whole government was paralyzed with impeachment. And I know that it was like in December or something they started talking about. There was talk about the coronavirus. There was talk about what was happening in China. Yeah. And it was about that time. I remember the president said, "Hey, we're looking into this. We're gonna, we're gonna stay on top of it." But at the same time, he's getting impeached.
Mm-hmm.
So, these guys. This reminds me of, you go back to Saul Alinsky, right? Rules for Radicals.
Yep.
And two of the tactics in that book, one of them, you hear a lot of, is they never let a crisis go to waste. But the other one talks about, if you want to take down a system, if you want to take over and take down a system, you have to overload the system. And that's what we're seeing right now. You're seeing the media take this virus thing and turn it into like an atom bomb or something, or some sort of whatever, something much worse than it actually is.
Right.
And they're just ginning up all of this fear, and that's what he's doing with this speech. He's fear-mongering, and he's pushing the blame at the president. And so it's just like this whole same game all over with. You couldn't get him with impeachment. You couldn't get him with the Mueller report. So let's get him with this coronavirus thing.
Yeah,
we're going to make him look bad. We're going to kill the economy. We're going to shut down the government, and he won't get reelected.
So, and that's what the president was talking about when he said hoax. He wasn't saying that the virus was a hoax. He was saying that the way that the Democrat Party is going to handle this is going to be a hoax. And I knew that they would. I mean, I put out a tweet, and it's crazy. This is another thing that's going on Facebook. And I got a thing on YouTube saying that because so many, this is funny, the one I got on YouTube, they said because of the coronavirus, they've had to let some of their employees go, so they're not going to be able to do the normal type of analysis of videos for content that may violate the terms of agreement. So some videos may get pulled because we don't have time to look at them. Now, what do you think is going to get pulled?
Oh yeah, anything conservative.
Yeah, exactly. And so with Facebook, I put a tweet up on Twitter, and then I copied the picture and I put it up on all the other social media platforms. I put it on Facebook. It's reached on my page, right? I put it up there. It reached 200,000. It's had like 1,500 shares, right? But another woman took it, and she took the screenshot of it. She didn't take credit, but she took the screenshot of it and tagged me and put it on her page. It's gotten over it's reached over 10 million people. 10 million. Wow. Now, what does that show you? That my page is completely shadow banned, right? Because I'm the originator, and I have a far bigger audience than she does, and it only reached 200,000 people. So, and that goes right along with this. Again, we can't forget. And somebody was mad one day. People are all uptight now when you criticize. Like I was criticizing Bernie Sanders and Joe Biden, saying that this was the biggest waste of time ever. That this debate that they had, the last one that they had, and people are like, you should now during this crisis, you should throttle back on your criticism and stuff, and we should all get along with that. I don't know what world they live in, but just because we're in a crisis situation doesn't mean that the leftists in this country, which I believe should be illegal and are definitely a national security threat, it's not like they went away. But I want to ask you, what is your take on this? Because on this situation that's going on, because I know it's real. I got a buddy who's, and I've talked about on this show, he's on the front line in Washington State. He's had, well over 24 people die in his emergency room. And I've seen out here in New York City and Long Island how the hospitals are filling up with corona patients. But the death numbers don't seem to be adding up. I don't know if they're going to come or if this is just it. But is this? Do you get the feeling that this is overblown or not?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. This is a crisis that's being taken advantage of big time. And it's being overblown big time in every way it possibly can to try and hurt this nation. But, when you look at the mortality rates, and actually the majority of them are, elderly.
But now they are saying that young people are getting sick.
Yeah, but, you're if you got to, I don't know the young person that was in New York that you were talking about earlier. I don't know what his situation was.
Mm-hmm.
But how many young people have not been taking care of themselves? They've been, this person could have been a drug addict, could have been on fentanyl or heroin or something like that and have a compromised immune system somehow.
Mm-hmm.
And sure, it's going to affect them, because it looks for either elderly people or others that have a compromised immune system, and that's where it settles in. But there's been tens of thousands of people that have had this virus and have made it through without a problem.
Yeah, they're saying,
but they don't talk about that.
Yeah,
they don't talk about that.
They're saying now that 38% of hospitalizations for corona are people between the ages of 20 and 55. But a lot of those people are recovering. They are saying now the one thing that they're discovering is even those that recover and even those that had mild symptoms, when they do chest x-rays, they're having damaged lungs. It's causing them to have damaged lungs. So there is that. I can
believe that. Yeah.
The reason I haven't come out and said that I think it's overplayed or it's not is because I do have my hand in there with the people that are on the front line, and I've talked to infectious disease specialists and stuff, and they see this potential is dramatic. But what we're doing in this country by largely self-quarantining has made a huge difference. And that may be the reason why we're not seeing the death rate. It's hard to tell. You know what it reminds me of, Mike? It reminds me of stop and frisk. Stop and frisk was a controversial policy, but what it did was it told bad guys that if you have a gun or a weapon, there's a chance you're going to get caught with it, right? So we don't really know how many people left their stuff at home. We don't really know how effective it was, but we do know that when they took it away, that crime went up, right? Because that basically what you did then was tell everybody, hey, you can carry your weapon. You're probably not going to get searched. So that's where I think maybe we are, is that, we told everybody to self-quarantine and to keep social distance, and we've kept these numbers at bay. But if people get frustrated and they say, we don't want to be told what to do, and they go back out, then the numbers could look like we would think that they would.
Maybe, and in certain parts of the country, maybe. I don't think it would cover the entire country. The heavier populated, the coasts, the west, the east and west coast areas, the big population centers, where you have a high density of people. But you get out in, like where I live, in Nevada, we've had a handful of people that have gotten this thing, and I think we've only had like one death or one or two. Yeah. In this state. So but they should take the measures, the draconian measures that they're taking here.
Mm-hmm.
And it's political. I'm going to go back to the lady I call the Queen Mayor of Reno. when she came out and made her declaration, first of all, the chief of police and the representatives from the Washoe County Health Department were standing behind her. And when she made the declaration, he didn't know it was coming. Chief of police looked at her like, "Are you nuts? You're going to make everybody stay home, and I'm supposed to somehow enforce this?" And then immediately after she did that, the health department came out, because she quoted the health department saying, "Yes, you absolutely have to do this." They came out and said, "We never said anything of the kind. This is just a politician overreacting, or at the very least, but probably just wanting to get out in front of the cameras and say, 'Oh, look, I'm doing something. I'm reacting here. I'm being a great leader,' when all they're doing is hurting tens of thousands of people, in this state, hundreds of thousands of people in this state."
That's what they do, though. You get one Democrat who does one thing, and then you have others that will follow along the same way. It's the same thing on social media. If you get attacked by a troll farm, what they all say the exact same thing. It's not like they're original, or if they're really leading, they just follow each other's leads like robots, like puppets,
So, yeah, and they get their talking points from the DNC.
Yeah. Yeah. Hey, listen, I think we'll cut it there, and then I'll have you on again as this thing progresses. It's interesting where we're going. I don't know. Again, I still don't know what de Blasio thinks that the military is going to do that volunteers couldn't do. He could ask for cops or former, military veterans to help out and swear them in as law enforcement. I mean, they could ask for volunteers at the hospital. It's.
I don't see where they're going to need a huge amount of the uptick in law enforcement. But, you get, if they can, some of these guys think if they can pressure the president into, bringing in the military or the National Guard or whatever and having armed troops all over the place, they can turn it around against him in the election. You say, "Yeah, he turned the United States into an armed encampment."
Right. Exactly.
Yeah, when he didn't need to. Whatever they can find to try and discredit him, in the hopes that one of the grumpy old men gets elected president.
Yeah. All right, brother. Be safe out there. Even though we don't know what it is, still, be careful.
Yeah. Make sure you take your wipes out there with you, and you wipe off your workout equipment outside there. Okay. You never know.
Yeah. You never know. I may give it to myself. Oh my Lord. And you have plenty of toilet paper, right?
Hey, I got so much toilet paper you wouldn't. But we are the kind of people where we do stock up on things anyway.
Mm-hmm.
We always have a couple weeks worth of food in the house, plenty of toilet paper, and all that. And that is something that people should learn from this: is that you should prepare. You don't have to have 2 years worth of food per se, but you should have a couple weeks worth of food and toilet paper and
non-perishable items. Not go out and buy bananas. Those are going to go bad.
Oh, wait a minute. I like bananas.
No, I like bananas too, but in this case, you're not going to go. If you like bananas, you don't go buy a whole bushel of them because they're going to go bad in a week. Bananas don't keep.
Exactly, and you should have some cash on hand.
Yeah.
That's the other thing. You should have some cash.
Yep.
Don't rely on your cards. So,
that is true. All right, brother. Hey, thank you very much. Appreciate it.
It's always good talking to you. Thank you very much for having me on. We'll see you again.
We'll have you back again real soon. All right. Out. All right. And I think that just about covers it. And I think, those are two of my go-to people. And Dave Robinson, former Marine. Well, always a Marine, I guess. A Marine. It's not active duty. And in West Virginia. And Michael Jack out in Reno, former FBI special agent, senior FBI special agent, and a business owner, amazing guy, part of the Republican Party out there. Some weird times we're in, folks. Weird times. And idiots like Mayor de Blasio don't make it any easier. That's for dadgum sure. Listen, thank you again for all that you do for helping out with the show. Please keep putting it out there. Let's get the numbers higher on this show. The more people that hear this, the more truth we're going to have swirling around. We'll get to the bottom of these scary rumors that people keep talking about. I don't think the National Guard is going to be called out, but, you know, you can't tell anything with people like these leftist mayors and governors what they're going to do. You just can't tell. Look at California right now. Just as I'm recording this, now on lockdown. I don't know, folks. We'll keep coming to you. I'll see you tomorrow on The Experts. I'm Jonathan Gilliam. The truth has arrived. Peace. And I'm out of here. Well, now I have my own dadgum corona problem in my own house. I have no more beer, no more Corona Light. Now I got to put on rubber gloves and a mask and go get Corona Light. Corona! Peace out.